Hello, everybody. Welcome to Pop Goes the 60s. Joining me today is Larry Graves, the Canadian Studmuffin. And I know many of you know exactly who this guy is. So, Larry, I'm going to hand it over to you and give yourself a brief introduction. And you've been on YouTube a long time.
Yeah, I've been on YouTube since February of 2006, so over 18 years. I just, I don't know. I started not not really music related videos. It was more just, being creative with comedy or whatever. And then gradually through the years, I've always loved music and, the Beatles and all kinds of different bands. And then gradually it's been more focused on music lately, although I sometimes do other videos like comedy or whatever. And yeah.
Well, I
And
gotta,
I did have a main channel called Canadian Stud Muffin, which I think we'll get into, which
yes.
it's still there, but I don't upload on there anymore.
Well, one of the things that when I joined YouTube, you were one of the first persons that I recognized doing music videos and doing reviews. So you were
Yeah.
really one of the main people that inspired me to start my channel, and you were
Yeah.
one of the first people to support me. So I've always appreciated that. So I'm gonna support you in your turn of events
In
here
my time of need.
in your time of day. I didn't want to say that, but because you're
Yeah.
doing just fine.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but generally, most people who follow you, and some people that follow me don't know who you are. Your channel just was demonetized after 18 years.
Yeah.
And I want to just lead off with that because I think that's interesting. And YouTubers do face some challenges when doing content and creating content. And you certainly were met with a very big challenge. I'm not quite, I don't quite understand why they demonetized your channel. So do you want to give a little bit brief background on what happened?
I thought you were going to tell me the reason, Matt.
I've got a couple of
No,
ideas, but I can't say for sure.
yeah, I just uh yeah, I just received a message one morning that it was demonetized. And with all that they sent me, there's no reason why. It's like I have to figure out the reason it was demonetized. Uh, and later they said, well, we cannot alter the time limitation for reapplying. In 3 months, I can reapply for monetization again, which I don't think I'm going to do. Uh, You can use this time to closely review your content, make necessary edits, re-upload videos, or remove content from your channel that may have impacted monetization. Meanwhile, I've got over 3,000 videos, and I've got to figure out what the issue is because they won't tell me.
Well, it sounded like from a couple of the videos I watched of you kind of going into this that it had something to do with your live streaming
I
and
think it could, but
where you were because you were live streaming and I think pushing that to Facebook and maybe one other place and multiple channels maybe.
yeah, on StreamYard, you can live stream to multiple places like Facebook. I don't think that was the issue though, but you can also stream to another YouTube channel. And I've got two YouTube channels, so I was streaming to both 3 or 4 times, not all the time. But
Mhm.
that could have been the issue, but they're not saying it is the issue, right?
Well, that's
Like,
what's I don't understand why
yeah,
they can't just
yeah,
tell you because clearly
yeah,
if that's the issue, well, then you can just not do that.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
I'm sorry, I won't do that anymore.
well, I
Yeah,
can.
there's no warning or anything, right? And they just take away the monetization and yeah.
Hmm. Well, luckily you already had a second channel that was already had been around a long time. You were able to shift
Well, a
everything
couple
to
of
that.
years, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
And it is
that's good.
monetized, so yeah,
Okay.
at the moment.
Well, let's talk about monetization because I don't think once we get monetized and you have a little bit of money rolling in, in these times we all rely on that money. And
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
think that a lot of I don't know if a lot of viewers understand how it works. I mean, my monetization is based on mostly the ads that run in my videos. And when I started this channel a little over 4 years ago, I fully intended to monetize at some point and make money if I could off this and
yeah.
providing the best content I can, which you've done for 18 years. And that's why I don't understand because you've done a combination of music reviews, and I would say comic videos. You have, and they
Yeah.
both kind of are on your channel. So you've got a couple different, I think you've got a couple different types of followers that follow you. You've got your content that's, they love your comedy, and you've got the Beatles stuff and the music stuff. So
Yeah.
I don't really see that, seems all original content to me. So I don't know why YouTube wouldn't want to keep that rolling, because they're making money off of you.
Yeah. And when I started in 2006, there was no advertising or anything, right? I just uploaded videos because I love being creative. And then I don't know what year it was, but maybe 15 years ago, it's like, oh, you can make money on YouTube now, and that's a bonus. Even though I was working, it was like more money to,
Hmm.
help out and all that. And so I've been relying on that, especially uh, since I can't work anymore. I was on disability, but that ends when you're 65. So more than ever, I was relying on the YouTube money to help. I'm on a pension and then I also make some money on Patreon, but the YouTube money I relied on every month, right? For like whatever, 15 years. And all of a sudden, it's like you're fired from your job with no reason given, right? Yeah.
Well, that's what's surprising me. I can understand if you were given, reviewed or given some warnings
Yeah.
and say, well, hey, you can't do this. You're
Yeah.
violating the terms of the agreement, which
Yeah.
I don't understand. And they haven't been able to give you any information.
No, no.
I don't know. I would encourage you to try to reapply, because it seems to me that at some point they have to put it in writing as to why they denied you or why they're allowing
Okay.
you in. But
But when I do reapply, this is what I have to do. Uh, for the appeal video, we recommend showcasing your recording and editing process. This is crucial as it demonstrates how you work and create your videos, proving that the content you publish is entirely your own. And it goes on. But so I've got to show them after 18 years of doing YouTube videos how I do YouTube videos.
yeah, I mean, I
Yeah,
can't. That seems just like a boilerplate answer for them, because
yeah,
I've watched a lot of your videos and I can't see how. I mean, Larry, you're a unique guy. I mean, there's not
yeah.
another
Thank you.
Larry Graves. So I mean, I find it unique and original. So I mean, if there are things that anything that you use that wasn't yours, I mean, certainly in a minuscule amount.
Yeah.
So,
And once in a blue moon, you'll upload a video and maybe it has music that's like I don't, whatever, but I'll get a copyright thing, right? And I won't
mhm,
use the video, right? I'll
sure.
delete it. You get a warning, right?
Yeah, I mean, you and I have to deal with copyright
Yeah,
claims. So a lot of people don't understand this. Larry and I, if we include music, sometimes there'll be a copyright claim, and we can decide to either mute that, we can delete that, or just allow somebody else to get the money from that.
yeah,
So there's a couple options we have. And sometimes, I don't want to change the video if I've already uploaded it. I just let the chips fall where they may, and somebody else
yeah,
makes the money. And that's
yeah,
not a bad thing. But the way, when we do reviews, there's this thing called fair use that it falls into. And there seems to be, if you use small enough amounts of these songs, sometimes that's okay. Not always, though. So it's
not the
still
Eagles, Matt.
not the Eagles. Yeah, and I know that people like Rick Beato have done. He's talked about this, where even if you're doing a guitar tutorial or something, Ozzy Osbourne is another one. Who would
Yeah,
really? I mean,
Sharon,
the
yeah,
Eagles. The Eagles are. They don't understand that if you have people wanting to learn their material, that's a good thing. That
yeah,
promotes them. And for whatever reason, they got it in their mind that anybody else that makes a penny off of them is is not to make that penny, even though it's
yeah.
promoting their work.
It's frustrating for us because I would love to. I understand like posting a full song, right? Okay, you shouldn't be making money off that,
Right.
but a 30-second sample of any song, you're promoting the artist, right?
Exactly. And
Yeah,
I think I've got some full songs on my channel that I don't make the money. And I
yeah,
love one song I did was, it's the making of the song Something by the Beatles. So I play so much of that song that was claimed. Okay, I completely understand that.
yeah,
But yeah, it really is an area. Now, other, I don't know if you do any podcasting on any podcast
No,
platforms?
no,
Now,
no.
there's hundreds of podcast platforms, and people are playing music there as if it's a radio station. And nobody has shut that down yet. Although though that might be coming. We saw
Yeah.
that happen with Napster back when they started shutting down internet web radio stations if they didn't have licensing. So,
And
yeah, go ahead.
and then there's Spotify. You can go listen to any music for free on Spotify, right? So why can't you have a 30-second clip?
Yeah, Spotify is a little different, I suppose,
Yeah,
because that's they're paying licensing to
yeah,
get that, but it's not like the artists make much. It's just
yeah,
it's the new way to listen to music, and I still like the old way. And I understand the artists are getting squeezed. Anytime there was a change in um, like when we went from vinyl and cassette to digital to CD, and then went from that to, I guess, to downloads and now to streaming, every iteration that the artist makes less.
yeah,
So I can understand that's why we have some 80-year-olds touring. And, they actually want to maintain their level of living because they're not making the money on the royalties like they used to, which is a shame.
yeah,
And they're selling their catalogs and everything. So it's an interesting time. And I think that people like us that are doing this is promoting, especially the older music. And I think it's a valuable, I think we're providing a service in many ways to not only promote it, but, create conversation around it. And that spreads to social media. So these are all good things.
yeah. And one thing I've noticed is I used to do YouTube Shorts, which I know some people find annoying, but with YouTube Shorts, you can almost, I would say, 99% of the time use original music in the short, and it's fine. YouTube allows that. So
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah,
Because I think they're only a minute long. So maybe the shorts, maybe they just haven't gotten around to screwing us yet. I don't
yeah,
know. But I don't know why that would be different, but I guess those are top out at a minute anyway. So, but
and,
yeah,
and
they don't seem to always know what they're doing.
yeah. And one thing I wanted to say for anybody that's followed me all of these years, when that did happen to me, it was a pretty bad day, pretty depressing. But I received so many supportive messages, like hundreds of them. And, people that, I guess some people don't even comment when they watch a video, but some people would say, I've been watching you for 10 years or whatever. And just, I want to thank everybody. And then I also received support money wise from many people. And that really did help me out in my time of need. So just thanks once again to everybody for being there for me.
Yeah, and I had even people on my channel mentioning, "Hey, did you hear what happened to Larry?" So yeah, you're very well known, and I think, yeah, I mean, you've got support certainly. And I
Yeah.
mean, my channel could go away too. I mean, I don't know. I don't
Well, I'd send
know.
a dollar your way, Matt, if that happened.
Well, I just don't have. It's not like there's a board that can hear claims, I suppose, or challenges.
Yeah.
I don't know how that exactly works,
Yeah.
but if they demonetize me, that would change things from my channel for sure. Because I
Yeah.
put a lot of time into it, and I mean, I just couldn't do it for no return.
Yeah.
And the money actually, once you get a following, you're kind of on the hook to continue to produce the level of quality of content that you had been doing. So once they expect it from you, you got to maintain that level, which is a good thing, I think. But I guess these things don't
A,
last
le- a
forever.
level a level of quality. I got to write that down for my channel.
Well, um, I've seen some very big YouTubers disappear, music
Yeah.
style that I just didn't occur to me. It's like a year goes by. What happened to that person? And they've just
Yeah.
gone. And for whatever reason, some people, you got families and kids that can't do it. I mean, I understand the the rigor that it takes to put this stuff on. And you do what? You do something almost every day, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, I do maybe 4 to 6 videos per month. And that's all I could really do. Well, some of my stuff is it's very time consuming. Some is not, but that's one thing I've never been able to do is do the more, more frequently. I know that you've been making videos daily for a long time, and would you say you're basically retired? Is that how you're able to do that? Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I'm retired because I have chronic pain,
Okay.
and I was on disability. Like I said, it was on disability, but now that's done. So yeah, so
Well, that's
the extra income from YouTube does help.
well,
Yeah.
all the more reason why it's a big deal for you because I totally understand. And I think, yeah, one of the things that I've had to do is try to increase my amount of videos, and I've not been able, I can only do so many. So I'm kind of I know that the algorithm likes if you can do videos daily, which you've always been doing. So your other channel is going to grow no problem at all. And I'll leave the link below for people to check it out. And did you see that? I sent you one. One guy said, "Hey, I've never heard of this guy, but he's really funny." So you're going to get some new people, I think. But
Yeah, it's
I have no, I think you're going to be able to grow this back up again. And it's interesting too, because having a comedy channel, part of what your channel was, I don't know if you're going to continue to do the comedy, but that's a very risky thing. It takes a lot of guts to do that because the comedy is really an acquired taste. And you've got your style, like I said, very original. And are you going to continue to do the comedy?
unfortunately, yes, Matt. Um, yeah, I don't do as many as I used to, and I actually just did one about a week ago, and the premise was, the movie Brokeback Mountain.
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay. I saw that in a thrift store with my girlfriend Molly. I thought that'd be a great. I've never seen the movie, but I understand the premise of it,
Hmm. Hmm.
and so that'd be a great idea for a comedy video. Okay, and so I did the comedy video, and I would say 90% or more got the joke, and the joke was I just thought it was a regular Western movie like John Wayne or a cowboy movie, and it isn't. It's about two males that become lovers, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that, as they say in the comedy video. But I'm acting kind of disturbed and all that it wasn't what I thought it was, and I'm kind of upset about it. But I keep saying that nothing, not that there's anything wrong with that. So most of the people got the joke, but there was a few that thought I was being serious and they were worried about me.
Well, it's kind of funny, Larry, that your comedy jokes, sometimes you play them so straight, you actually have to
Yeah,
explain them to the
yeah.
people.
I'm a pretty good actor, is what I've been told.
Well,
So
I had one of my viewers, I said, hey, because I mentioned this to my Patreon people that I'm going to be doing this video, and they said, "Oh, that's real." They thought you were joking that you lost your channel. There was that one person.
I know.
It's
Yeah.
like, so
There
that's
are
the boy that
times,
cried wolf.
yeah, yeah, it is frustrating because, sometimes I do post a serious video and somebody will say, are you joking? That's, you know, but it's to be expected, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. You kind of take me in a little bit. Usually, partway through the video, I can okay, this is. I think I know you well enough where I can say,
Yeah.
okay, must be a joke, but it's
Yeah.
still entertaining. It's still, and I think a lot of people. The reason why people watch channels in general, I think that they like to it's a reality TV thing and they like the personality. So you wouldn't have a strong following unless they really liked your personality.
Mhm.
And that's part of your comedy. So I think that's a double-edged sword. I've always tried to keep my personality out if I could, but you can't really if you're creating
No.
content to kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
But that's always I think kind of a risky thing to do.
And sometimes I haven't done it recently, but I'll do like I'll do a serious top 10 list, but once in a while I'll do like a joke top 10 list just to, I guess,
Hmm.
don't know,
I've
get
seen
people
some of it.
going, right? Like top 10 Pink Floyd songs. Number 10 will be something popular like Wish You Were Here. And then the other nine will be like their worst songs, right?
I know you did that with the Beatles once, and you
Yeah,
got a
yeah.
lot of hate, and which is interesting because I just approached the topic for my first time as
Yeah, I
well.
need to talk about that, Matt. Your
Well,
top 10.
I'm going to have you fill out the survey because I know you're on record with some 10 worst Beatles songs, and
Yeah,
that's always let's talk about that because that's one of those topics it's essentially it's kind of a clickbait topic.
yeah.
And the term worst doesn't apply in most
No.
cases, but every big artist has got tracks that, just aren't up to par with their best stuff. It's just how it is. And some people don't like to
It's
hear it.
really least favorite, right? It's not worst, it's least favorite.
Well, I did a couple videos on the Beatles' best songs, so I came up with this criteria. So I had criteria for the best, criteria for the worst. And that way you can kind of take some of the subjectivity out of it, and you're not really blamed for having a bad personal opinion. And I think a lot of people, when they don't like a song, they don't always list the reasons why, but they certainly have reasons why. And typically what I'm finding is that they're in line with some of the criteria I come up with.
Yeah.
So there can be some consensus. It's not a perfect science, but I offered a survey, and I just was tallying up some of the information just last night. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
I've had over 3,000 song entries. And once you
Wow.
get that many, you start to there's a flow to it, and there's okay, well, these songs clearly are problems for some fans, and these songs don't get mentioned at all. So it's really kind of interesting. But I think, like you say, when you do a comedy video on it, you get people talking, and it's just one of those topics that people they get really offended, and they really have no business being offended by a song that they didn't create, have nothing to do with.
I recently did my top 12 favorite albums of all time, for the if for the rest of my life I could only listen to 12 albums. And I did the list, and somebody was saying, where is this album? It's like, this is my list, not yours. It just gets frustrating sometimes. Or if you do a top 10 Led Zeppelin songs, like a serious one, and Stairway to Heaven isn't there, you're going to hear about it. Like, where's Stairway to Heaven? It's not on my
Exactly.
list.
And I always challenge people because I said, well, I listed my criteria. What criteria do you use? It's kind of interesting because people think that whatever they think is the best or the worst, they think that that's what everybody else thinks
Yeah,
or should think.
yeah,
And it's really a very self-centered way to go about that kind of thing. Once you start talking to other people, it's like, well, why do you dislike this song so much? I really like that song. So that's where the discussion is. And I'm not offended if somebody says, I don't like Hey Jude. I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
offended at
Sure.
all.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
some people, like I had one responder said, there are no worse Beatles songs. They're taking this kind of like moral superiority, high
yeah,
road bullshit. I'm like, that is somebody who can't, they're withdrawing themselves from the conversation, which
yeah,
is fine. Then don't comment. But
yeah.
they feel the need to silence us because they don't want us to have an opinion. And that's a
Mm,
problem just in social media, but certainly in this vinyl community. They like to uh, throw their weight around and not allow other opinions into the arena.
yeah. Or, you do a video on, say, Pink Floyd, and somebody leaves a comment, I hate Pink Floyd. It's like, well, why are you clicking on a video about Pink Floyd?
Exactly. It's like you try to every video we do can't appeal to everybody, and we have
Yeah,
to we throw out some topics out there that are just not going to get a lot of views, and but some people will appreciate maybe a top 10 of, like, say, Sparks or whoever,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I think that just I think our job has been to broaden the discussion and get more music into people's ears to promote the bands and artists we love.
yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, I know you received a box set. Did you get the recent box set of Mind Games? You did. Excellent. This has also been a topic. So I just did a review of that album with John Heaton. Heaton got a lot of flack from various people about, he got the free thing, so he's got to give a positive review. Well, in the case of John, he's always loved that album. So that he's had a review on YouTube years ago that is very positive. But what do you say to people? I'm sure you've gotten the same kind of feedback. Hey,
I
Larry,
haven't,
you got the freebie, therefore you've got to say positive things about it.
no, that's not true at all. I've actually had very little negative negativity getting this, but I've heard of other channels, and actually Mean Mr. Mayo, Joe, he just posted yesterday, I guess, he and maybe some others were getting some flack about it. And he, like with his reviews and anyone else I've seen review this that got it, they're honest. They have some negative thoughts on it. Like, but with me, I'm more of a positive person. But there's a couple things I'm going to say that are kind of negative about Mind Games. It's not my favorite John Lennon album, but the remix uh, is much better than the muddy production from before.
Mhm.
So I appreciate it a lot more now than I did in the past.
Hey, can I ask you a question? Well, why do you think I never get sent any of these box sets?
Honestly, I think I know the reason.
Why is that?
Okay, first of all, your name is Pop Goes the 60s, and this is 70s material, right?
True.
I think you haven't always been positive about Yoko Ono. I actually love, not all, but a lot of her music. I have some of her albums. I think her double album, Approximately Infinite Universe, is great. I think Joe has mentioned not loving everything she does, but just some positive things about her music. So I think just respecting Yoko is a bonus, I believe.
Yeah, I think my channel, I think
I'm not saying that you're bashing her constantly either. Like,
no, I mean
yeah,
I've certainly I've been critical of her,
yeah,
certainly. I've
and
been
that's fine.
positive and I've also been positive. So what happens here, and the reason I kind of asked you the question is I know why I don't get it, these boxes. And I would send them back if I did, because I want to be able to. I'll tell you, if you do get free stuff,
Yeah.
it does color the way you talk about it, because it just does. That's just how the world works. And I think that these box sets, there's really two things going on. You can review the music on it as kind of a separate review, but then you're reviewing the box. And to me, those are separate reviews. So the in talking with John Heaton, the Mind Games box, and you just mentioned the remix.
Mhm.
Those are things that I think are positive things that I mean, I haven't listened to them yet,
Yeah.
so I couldn't really comment on those. I'm just commenting on the original release, the original album, why it got the critique it did at the time. Those things I think that's the reassessment I like to do. I find the album it's okay. There's a few good songs, a few mediocre songs, and a few lousy songs.
Yeah.
And I don't have a problem with saying that. Uh, People that get box sets don't really put it in the words I do, which is why they get the sets. Even though my channel, in some cases, I mean, I can move units. I've had, when I have a writer on and I
Yeah.
put up their video, they contact me. I don't have to contact them. They're like, Matt, I know the video's up because I'm selling a ton of books. So I know that my channel reaches people that support these artists. And if it's an interesting topic, so it's not an issue of selling units, I don't believe. It's an issue of me being not as positive of everybody else. So I
Mhm.
mean, and Larry, I know you and I've watched your stuff for a long time. And like you just said, you're a positive person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think it's not to say you pull punches, but you and I just review differently. And
Yeah.
I'm, and that's where the Yoko Ono thing, I mean, I don't expect to get anything from the Lennon camp or any other camp really, which is fine. I'm perfectly capable of buying it myself. But I think that the controlling of the narrative, particular of Yoko Ono, has gotten out of hand. And the people that carry water for her, I think, are ignoring a lot of her work that, quite frankly, should be criticized and talked about. So,
Mhm.
I mean, if they don't want that, I mean, I'm just not, I'm not their boy, which is fine by me. But, that those are the things that the politics of this business, Larry, which you and I have to dance around constantly.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I've been like I've had this box set for a couple of weeks. This is the first, and I'm gonna do a review on it soon, but I'm kind of leery because first of all, I don't think I'm that great of a reviewer. Of the people that got the box set, I feel like an amateur compared to some of the other videos I watch. And so I don't know. I just don't think I'm a great reviewer. I just have a passion for music, right? And I just
Mhm.
say, I love this or it's great. And you know,
Your review, I mean, talking about the remixes, I think that's probably a really good thing to talk about because the production on that album has always been ripped on. And I mean, production for me does get in the way if it's not good. And Lennon's not that good of a producer. He's just not, he doesn't have the gift that McCartney has for arrangement.
yeah.
And obviously McCartney's got a stronger ear for detail uh, with some production anyway. So yeah, I think those are all things to comment on. And yeah, the other thing I ask is that the idea of a commemorative box set suggests that this is an important piece of work and deserves some nice commemoration. And some of the solo Beatles stuff, I question whether they're worthy of that kind of treatment. Does anybody talk to you about that at all?
No. Like what particular album like do you think wouldn't be deserving of like a box set for
Well,
the
Mind Games, I think, would be one. It's not on the level of Plastic Ono Band or Imagine. Um,
I would disagree with you
well,
because
mhm.
honestly, like the mind games I had from 2010 or whatever, I don't think I played it maybe once every 2 years. I was just not interested in it, mainly, not mainly, but partially because of the production, right?
Mhm.
And I just focus more on like Plastic Ono Band or Walls and Bridges. I just love those, and I still do. I love those albums more than Mind Games.
Mhm.
So when I do the review for this, I'm not going to be talking about the original because I haven't really heard it in a couple of years, right? But this remix I am impressed with, and I enjoy the songs a lot more than I used to from what I remember.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say Mind Games. Now, the next one, I guess, well, I would think we'd get a Walls and Bridges. I think
Mm-hmm.
they've given up on Sometime in New York City. Now, that album, which I do not like, John Heaton and I did a review of that one, and I'm very critical of that album. But, I can see there's additional live material that could be packaged with that. It's a period piece, so it has some historical uh, relevance, I think. And maybe it's, it didn't help the cause at all, quite the opposite. It might have hurt the cause, but it's still interesting for that alone. And I think Mind Games doesn't quite have that same topical tone to it that Sometime in New York City did. So, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Mind Games and I think it's an okay album,
Mm-hmm.
but I think Mind Games and Walls and Bridges aren't quite. They're just not the level of his first two albums. And I guess people are just getting used to having a box set of every album, like Paul McCartney, for example. I mean, does Wildlife deserve a box treatment? Well, that's debatable. I would say no. But, he does a nice job. He puts this great book together, and people like that. He's got a big fans that'll buy it.
Yeah.
So, okay, but I think but I don't want to get the idea that it's a box set shouldn't shouldn't make the reviews review the music as better than it really was. That's why I like to separate the music from this box set treatment, which everybody gets all excited about and overrates the music.
Yeah.
And that's where I come in and I try to bring a little bit of discussion to that and challenge on that. So, and that's sometimes harder to do, but that's why I've got this whole, what are we going to get a box set of name a band, Afternoon Delights by the Starland Vocal Band. I mean,
Yeah.
where do we end here?
Yeah. And for me with mind games, I would say like half of the songs on it, I don't even remember, right? So they're almost like new John Lennon songs for
Well, there's a reason you don't remember them there, Larry.
him.
Yeah, the Utopian
Nah,
National
nah, nah.
Anthem. I was joking that was the best song on the album. It's 3 Seconds of Silence, but
The
even
remix
that,
on that is awesome.
much clearer, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think some of these songs I think should get taken to task because, Lennon I think there's an interesting time of his life. We know so much about the Beatles. I mean, there's been such a microscope on them. So we have all this backstory. We know why, what's going on in their lives and all this. So this creeps into the reviews. We know Yoko Ono was just about to kick him out or had just kicked him out when the album came out, but she was there throughout the production. Those are all interesting things. And some of that information came out on the box set, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that Yoko was there for most of the recording. So yeah, learn
And
something new every day.
yeah, I think she was just starting to work on her next album.
I'm curious, have you ever heard like one of her song-based albums, like approximately Infinite Universe?
Yeah, I've listened to all of her albums.
Okay, yeah,
And it's interesting because, you know, when people talk about Yoko Ono singing, they talk about this screeching or the whatever you want to call it, you know, the gagging or whatever it is she's
yeah,
doing. She seems to reserve that for some of John Lennon's stuff, Beatles stuff, appearing with Chuck Berry. And I think that's kind of interesting that she gives her worst stuff to her husband and the band he used to be in. And then on her album, she sings straight.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand why. That's why she's got the reputation she does.
yeah,
And you know, her albums are an acquired taste. They're not obviously
yeah,
meant for the masses, but she's got some interesting stuff on a couple of them. And actually, some of them, some of the music's maybe more interesting than some of the stuff her husband was doing at the same time.
yeah. Well, for instance, sometime in New York City, I actually enjoy Yoko songs more than John's. Although I know I'm the one of the rare people, I guess. But
Yeah, I think her contributions on that album are, I mean, I think some writers have said it right. They were reacting rather than leading and reacting to news. So she did the same thing. But yeah, she's got some interesting things in there. And I think that kind of catapulted her into having the solo career. And I think John Lennon, I mean, it's just natural for some artists to have to dry up and have dry periods. And he was going into his. That's
yeah,
totally natural. So although some people just do not want to accept that.
yeah,
But I think Yoko Ono was having a little bit of an uptick here. And because she had never really she hadn't done solo albums. So for a couple year span, she did a lot of work, and you know, some people really like it.
mhm, yeah,
I think some people, you know, I don't hear a lot of people saying, "Well, I'm going to listen to Yoko Ono's albums and just give her an honest listen." And if they did, I mean, some people say, "Well, it's just not for me," but I think they might appreciate the fact that she's not screaming like she normally does when she shows up with John Lennon or some of these public performances she's given.
yeah,
So I don't know why she played it that way. It would have been interesting to see if she did a live show.
and
Would anybody show up? You know, that would have been interesting. That would be in a way to see to gauge her popularity. Because let's face it, recording on the Apple label, her husband's John Lennon. I mean, that's going to push sales.
yeah,
Just does.
yeah.
And on her own, I wonder if she could have even drawn a crowd. But these are the things we talk about when on channels like
That's
ours,
right.
and you
And
know,
that's why
it's
you don't get anything from the Lennon estate, Matt.
well, I don't get anything from the McCartney estate either, and
Yeah.
I don't think I've done. I've been. If somebody asks me what solo Beatle do you listen to most, it's George Harrison,
Mhm.
and I've always listened to him the most. And I think it's because some of his more, I like his lyrics and some of his more spiritual stuff that's not too heavy-handed. It's thought-provoking, and I just like his stuff. So the way I listen to the solo Beatles, I typically make playlists of the stuff I like because there's a lot of stuff I don't care for and I don't want to sit through it, you know. And I do that with George as well. And
So what do you think of Paul's more recent album, like Chaos and Creation in the Backyard? That's one of my favorite albums by him.
yeah, I've just listened to that recently. And the reason I listened to it is because I kept hearing people say how it's one of his best albums.
Mhm.
And I'd heard parts of it. I thought, well, let me, because that's one I don't have.
Yeah.
And Paul McCartney's more recent stuff, and by that I mean Flaming Pie forward.
Mhm.
There's that, you know, Flaming Pie to creation in the chaos and creation in the backyard. I think he was creating some pretty good stuff. You know, it's more of a niche. You know, he's not making hits anymore. Perfectly fine. He's just doing what he does, and making the best music he can. So I appreciate that, but it's just not music for me. I don't go and put on that kind of music much at all. I
Yeah.
bought with McCartney's stuff, I bought Flaming Pie and so I started buying used CDs because I didn't want to spend the money. I didn't want to invest that kind of money into an artist that I just want to kind of see what's going on with him.
Yeah.
So that's why I did it. And that's kind of where I'm at. But the last one I bought might have been, what's the one before Chaos and Creation in the Backyard? I can't remember. Anyway, Driving Rain I've got
Driving
on
Rain. Yeah.
CD. But this Egypt Station stuff, the last one did McCartney 3. I've given those a listen. I think those are not nearly as good as Chaos and Creation. I think he's churning stuff out because he understands the craft of song making. And some people still like it, but it's
Mhm.
not for me. You know, it's not the stuff I go to buy. It's not the stuff I listen to. And I just don't think the last couple of albums have been worth my time to listen to. And I
Yeah.
think it's more of an exercise in marketing than it is in music making.
Yeah. I actually gave up on Paul after when Pipes of Peace came out. I never bought it. And I never bought a Paul McCartney album for, I think, over 25 years until Memory Almost Full. I heard
Mm.
one of the songs. So I bought the album. It's like, oh my God, I really like this. And so I became a fan again. But wasn't a big fan of Paul's for many years.
Yeah,
So
the 80s really was a
yeah,
tough time to be a Paul McCartney fan, at least for me. I mean, I didn't buy any. The last one I bought was Tug of War, and then I
yeah,
gave up after that. And then
same
I
here.
didn't buy another album until Off the Ground, which he was touring. And
Yeah,
in a weak moment, I bought the CD, you know. And I don't care for that CD much now, but I bought it because he was touring, and it was the first time I saw him. That was in 1993.
yeah,
And then after that, I didn't. I bought Flaming Pie, which, by the way, I think Flaming Pie is a really good album.
mhm,
And had that been the last album he made, I think it might have even given him, that album more gravitas. But he had more in the tank, and he likes making music. So, but I think that album is really strong. Maybe a little bit long, but
yeah, yeah.
strong. Do you listen to any of this Ringo on these EPs he's been coming out with the past few
No,
years?
and I saw I think his most recent EP at a record store. It's 4 songs, right? It was 24.99.
Wow. Yeah, he's put out a lot of material in the last
Yeah,
like 20 years, and
yeah.
I'm really not interested in any of it. I mean, I
I'm not either. I love Ringo as a drummer and for the Beatles and the early solo albums by him, but after that I lost all interest in his
he, d-
music.
yeah, he did a song a couple EPs ago called "Let's Change the World,"
Yeah,
and I listened to it, and I'm like, wow, if this could have come out in the mid 70s.
yeah, yeah,
But so the song is, I forget who wrote that. You know, he's got his usual cast of characters
yeah.
helping him out. And I thought to myself, I've never heard his voice sound better. And
Hmm.
I think this was a problem with the new technology, where if Ringo sounds better in, 2021 than he did in 1981, I
Yeah,
mean, I think we're being played here a bit. And I think what people are doing, the fans that are buying this, I think they feel like they're supporting Ringo. You got this, they feel the need to support him because they've always loved him.
yeah,
And I don't know. I mean, not everybody buys. I think he's Ringo. So there's some people that just won't buy Ringo, but I'm one of those. I mean, I've got his 70s stuff. He's got a couple good albums, but he's pretty spotty. What can you expect? I think I never expected a lot from Ringo. So I
yeah,
don't expect much, but people insist that it's great stuff. And it was some big mistake that his late 70s stuff weren't big hits. I'm
yeah,
sorry. It was
yeah,
not a
yeah,
mistake. That was
yeah,
actually proper for those albums not to be hits.
yeah. I've never had Ringo the Fourth on CD or on vinyl.
Oh, that's a tough one. Yeah, he was I always found it interesting that he never got involved like with a television show because you grew up in the 70s. Everybody had like a variety show.
Yeah.
even marginally talented. Paul Lynde had and he's singing, you know.
Well, Ringo did have one special, right? But I think it was
He
at the
did.
very bottom of the ratings. So maybe that's
Yeah,
why.
it
Yeah.
seemed to me like in the earlier 70s, they could have outfitted him with a show. I think he was living in LA. I mean, see, I wonder if he was even approached. I don't know. There's not been really, nobody writes much about Ringo. There's not,
Yeah.
there might be a couple minor biographies on him, but not much. So I always wondered why he wasn't approached. And I thought that he would have been a good option, like Cass Elliot. You know,
Yeah.
obviously she was a good singer,
Yeah.
but Ringo was a good personality, and he
Yeah.
could have carried a show and done,
Yeah.
what everybody else was doing.
Yeah.
I always thought that was a shame
Yeah.
because music wasn't gonna support him, long term.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's the Beatles that have supported him long term. So Larry, I've got to ask you, you didn't change apartments, did you? Is that the same place you've been in for a while?
Yeah, the very same one for the last 12 years.
Oh, 12 years,
Like
man. Oh
my
man.
background, Donny
I do.
Osmond. I like mixing it up.
Well, that's Donnie's first album, I believe.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
like I like looking at your wall back there. I thought, well,
yeah.
I didn't know if you bought a new place or
No,
I didn't
no.
know if the YouTube channel if it put you out on the street or what. I didn't know.
And speaking of Donny Osmond, the Osmond brothers, back in the 70s, everybody kind of mocked them but kind of listening to them again on Spotify and watching them perform live, they were talented, right? Like,
Oh yeah,
you know,
very talented group.
so props to the Osmonds.
Yeah, and I was a kid in the 70s, so when the Donnie Marie show came out, my sisters loved that show. So I
Yeah,
watched it all, and they were extremely talented.
yeah,
But they were a bubblegum act, and they wrote a lot of their own material and produced their own stuff, and were talented musicians. But it was just packaged for a certain kind of audience,
yeah,
and like everybody else, it has its run.
yeah.
But yeah, I've got some Donnie Marie stuff as well. In my
Don't
70s.
don't say that too loud, Matt.
Well, there's one album that my sister played over and over, and that one's still in my head, and that's got some good stuff on it. But yeah, it's
And
it's
Crazy Horses.
Crazy
The very first
Horses.
time I heard that, I thought Led Zeppelin's got a new song out. Yeah,
Yeah, and that was a big hit. It was like number
yeah,
13. So yeah, the Osmond Brothers did kind of a heavy metal song that
yeah,
actually charted pretty high in the charts, and
yeah.
go figure.
No, I was just saying I respect them more than I used to.
Yeah.
When you mature and get older.
There's always something you can say good about anybody, really,
Yeah,
especially if they
yeah,
had a hit
yeah.
and a hit
Like
TV
even a
show.
band like Nickelback, which I have, or Bon Jovi, I have no interest in their music. I don't like it, but that doesn't say that they're not talented, and they are for somebody, just not for me, right?
Yeah, Nickelback sure got a raw deal. I mean, they're kind of the I don't know. Everybody says that they hate them, but they've sold. He's kind of like they're kind of like the Paul McCartney, the Ram album. How everybody bought it, huge
Yeah,
hit,
yeah,
but all the critics ripped it.
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
Nickelback. I guess you got to have a whipping boy,
yeah.
and Nickelback is that.
Yeah, it's amazing how over the years, like you said, when Ram was released, it got a lot of flack, from the magazines and all that, and now it's considered like his best album of all time.
Yeah, yeah, it
Same
is.
with same with his debut, right?
Well, that one didn't get as much flack, did it? I don't.
It did a bit, yeah,
I think it didn't get flack until after the breakup announcement. Well, it came out roughly the same time, but I think it took a little. So, in other words, Ram took the brunt of the breakup headlines. The blame that McCartney got for breaking up the Beatles, that went to the Ram album. It didn't really go to the McCartney one album.
yeah. And
I don't think.
Even Ringo was dissing Ram. I wonder what he thinks about it now.
Yeah, is that one of your favorite McCartney albums?
Yeah, it's my favorite, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't like the Linda stuff on there at all. I think that really, if he could have got, I think it would be much better without her vocals on it. It really bothers me. And McCartney, for as much of a stickler he is, and supposedly a micromanager when it comes to his musicians, and then to let Linda in, who's the antithesis of that, is really a strange combination. And I wonder what Freud would say. I don't know that I have a favorite McCartney album. If you, I guess it would be Band on the Run. I
Yeah,
just think track for track, that's his strongest one. But
yeah.
like a lot of the Beatles solo stuff, it's hard for them to carry a whole album, have every song be great. You
Mhm.
got to get some clunkers in there, and it's just how it is.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So what do you want to see to come out from the Beatles camp? There's all this talk about rubber. So are there other
I
things that
and
you would want to see?
well, for the Beatles, it would be yeah, Rubber Soul. It'd be also interesting to see what they can do with the first four albums. Uh, and for Paul McCartney, London Town and Back to the Egg. We've been waiting for those for the last 5 years. So I don't know if he's finished with the archive edition, or
I
maybe
don't
he's
know
been
why it
listening
would
to
be.
you and saying no more box sets.
I don't know. I mean, the one hand clapping, I think, is a really good box set to come
Yeah.
out with. That makes
Yep.
total sense.
Yep.
It's not like you can't come up with two box sets in the same year either,
Yeah. Yeah.
unless he's waiting till he passes and that'll come up later. I don't know. I mean, people say that he doesn't like those albums for some
Mhm.
reason, and I don't know why that would be a reason to not do a box set, but that's what I've
Yeah.
heard. But I don't know if that's true or not.
And
But
I don't think Abbey Road really needed to be remixed. It sounded pretty good, the original.
yeah, and they didn't give us many outtakes. There's some,
Oh,
the
yeah.
book was nice, but I
Yeah.
didn't think it was. So what have you got on your list? Any topics for any upcoming videos you can share with the audience?
Yeah, I just kind of go day by day. I don't really plan ahead. Like, at night I might be laying in bed and thinking of a new video idea, and then I do it the next day. I don't get all prepared like you do, Matt. That's why, I understand your videos take longer because you take your time, and I just turn on the video camera and
I know
do
I
it.
got to get better at just turning the camera on and
Oh, you're excellent at what
pulling
you do.
a
Yeah.
Larry Graves because sometimes I mean the details are important, but I'm
Yeah.
trying to get better just delivering something, a topic that I
Yeah.
can just go on, without a whole lot of production,
Yeah.
and because that
So,
does
so,
weigh me down.
so do you look back at your older videos to see, like, has there been a big change with, where has it kind of been, or were you already comfortable when you started doing the videos?
It's pretty consistent with what I'm doing now. Um, the first couple of band videos I did, they were a little shorter. I was concerned with them being too long.
Yeah.
And so those very first few are a little bit different, but not by much. Because when I started this channel, it took me about a year. I pulled some things together. I had topics together. I had a style of how I wanted the graphics to look, the logo, all that stuff. I had a format already. So I've been able to stick with that. So I think that's been pretty consistent. And I think my videos just have gotten a little longer as I've gotten a little more, the band history videos anyway take a little time to tell. And as I've gotten comfortable doing them, they've gotten a little longer. And
Mhm.
I thought people it wouldn't hold their interest. But two things, it's basically held their interest, or I can break it up into parts, um, like I did with the Beach Boys, which needs parts. There are certain natural breaks in these bands' histories anyway, so it makes some sense. But that's I'm still kind of learning as I go, though.
Speaking of the Beach Boys, did you see the recent documentary of them on Disney?
I did not watch it. I did see quite a lot of reviews on it, and it kind of I didn't feel the need to watch it. And I
Yeah.
tell you something, having just done a Beach Boys series that was over 6 hours, if you line them up, I know how difficult it would be to fit a whole band of history into 2 hours.
Yeah.
So what I saw fans responding to how much they missed, I mean, I totally get it. I mean, they could have done, I'm not sure why they did what they did at this point.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
just
I
because they
think
have,
it ended in the early 70s, right? It was
okay.
just made in the 60s.
And
Yeah.
I, I, I wanted to end my series there as well. I went a little bit further, but then I didn't deal much with the 80s forward. I mean, there
You didn't
isn't,
talk about Summer in Paradise?
I didn't. I did have kind of a recap though that did address some of those things I missed because I don't know why they did it. Maybe just because some of the principal players are still alive, but I mean, it's a tough one to do.
And do you know what happens at the end of the documentary?
I do.
Spoiler
Yeah,
alert.
why don't you? I know that they all get together,
Yeah.
and how was that? I didn't really hear a lot
It
about how
was
that
very
went.
touching. I got teary-eyed from it. And Mike Love, he was talking about Brian at the end, and he was actually, kind of pretty emotional too. So it was pretty moving, you know.
Yeah,
I
it's too
don't
bad.
know if Brian realized where he was, though. It's sad, right? But
Yeah, these bands, there's a lot of water under the bridge, a lot
yeah,
of all the money. I mean, all the stuff they went through. Too bad they couldn't have done this 10 years prior, where Brian could
yeah,
have been a bigger contributor.
yeah.
But, I mean, hindsight. On my series, I was surprised. My Beach Boys series completely underperformed.
Really? Wow.
I mean, compared to my other band videos, I was surprised. I thought this is the thing. This is going to be. And I actually worked on that Beach Boys video series, and the smile segment. I spent about 2 years on that, just taking my time and really understanding it.
Yeah.
And to do a video series like that, it takes some understanding, some work to understand the whole thing. And I was really surprised how the Pet Sounds video I did, that era, 66 Pet Sounds and Good Vibrations, was probably one of the least watched of all of the videos I did, which is
Until
supposed.
this video, Matt. Till this video.
Well, I think it just showed to me that, I mean, so two of my bigger band videos, Cream
Yeah.
and Paul Revere and the Raiders. So Paul Revere and the Raiders isn't Cream, but for some reason, that
Wow.
video was big.
Yeah.
Cream, the precursor to the Cream video is really a two-parter. I did the Graham Bond Organization first, followed by Cream. Now, Graham Bond, that's the band that Ginger Baker and Jack Bruce were in. I didn't think anybody knew who Graham Bond was. That video has got 4 times the views of any of the Beach Boy videos I've done. Graham Bond.
Yeah.
That's because of the popularity of Cream, I believe. So you've got those rock bands do way better. And then Paul Revere and the Raiders, for some reason, the association was also big. So
Yeah.
why the Beach Boys aren't falling in, I don't understand that, other than to say that they have a much smaller audience than I thought.
But it's also just the YouTube algorithm. It's, I don't know about you, but there's times, oh, this video, you do a video, think, oh, this is going to get pretty good views, right? And it doesn't. And then you
Yeah,
do another video you don't even care about. You even think twice about posting it, and you end up posting it, and it gets great views. It's like,
that's very true. I mean, that's
yeah,
an example. I thought, oh, this
yeah,
Beach Boys thing, it's
yeah,
some of my best work, but it just
yeah,
didn't resonate.
yeah,
And over the years, maybe it still will. You're going to have the death of Brian Wilson and Mike Love, and these guys are not going to be around long. And maybe the algorithm will push that out because they're in the news. That's all possible.
yeah,
But just based on my audience, I was surprised that people weren't that interested as they were in some of these other bands. Which,
yeah,
Strawberry Alarm Clock is another example. That was one
yeah.
of your requests, Larry.
Yep, yep.
Thank you for that
And the
request.
Buckinghams, Matt.
Well, I think you're going to see the Buckinghams this year. So I've actually started
Yes.
working on them, and I am a fan of the Buckinghams.
Yeah,
And I just did the Chicago band New Colony Six, so the people are clamoring for the Buckinghams. But the
You-
Strawberry
uh,
Alarm Clock, just briefly here, they were got like double the views of my a lot of the Beach Boys videos.
yeah.
And I'm surprised
Um,
by that.
so for instance, with the Buckinghams, would you ever think of getting, I guess there a couple of the original members are still performing live. Would you ever think of getting one of them to interview as part of the series, maybe?
Well, possibly. I
Yeah,
kind of at the point where I like to do the series without talking to any band members and maybe doing talking to them after because I
yeah,
don't want to, you get.
yeah,
I think in some bands there's just not a lot of information on, so it might be helpful to talk to a band member. But like for example, I did um, interview Felix Cavalieri,
yeah. That was
and that
excellent.
was after kind of a lengthy. I did like a 3-part Rascals video, which was fun to do, and that's a story you've got. very people at opposite ends of the spectrum in that band. So you're going to get very different stories. So you got to
Mhm.
sometimes, if you know that, you got to be careful for what they tell you, you know. So I didn't really
Mhm.
approach my interview with Felix in that way. Hey, what's the problem with Eddie Brigatti? You know, I mean,
Yeah,
I just, I'm sure he wouldn't have appreciated that. But we talked about the music, so that
yeah,
was what I really wanted to focus on. So, yeah,
yeah.
I do think about some of that. I've talked to a couple people, and I'm just having a hard time fitting it in, really.
Mhm. And just going back to the YouTube monetization, all that, I received this back from YouTube about reuse content and examples to do and don't. One of the last example for don't, which I do not understand, is promotion of other people's content, even if you have their permission. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, I promote your show.
Yeah,
I mean,
don't promote it, Matt.
you promote my show.
That's a don't.
See, unless it's the only thing I can think of, I know that some commenters who leave links in my comment section, I think some of those get taken down by YouTube.
Yeah,
Now, if you were to promote something outside of YouTube, maybe that's it. Because why wouldn't, if you're promoting YouTube, that just is more revenue for YouTube. They want to keep people on the platform. So I have you done that at all? I mean, have you
no,
been putting links to outside of YouTube? I mean, maybe maybe the StreamYard stuff where you're going to Facebook, maybe that's how they're just viewing that. I
yeah,
don't know.
no idea. Uh,
But yeah, I don't know. That's a
yeah,
shame.
another one, sorry, is collections of songs from different artists, even if you have their permission,
Collection of songs from different artists. Well, I do that all the time.
even if you have their permission.
Well, I think in my case, so if I'm doing well, you the same thing. If you're doing a review, and this falls into the fair use thing. So if you don't play any music, there's even some. I mentioned Ozzy Osbourne earlier,
Yeah,
Osbourne, and maybe the Eagles. Some of this stuff, even if you mention their name, there are things in the algorithm that will recognize that and flag that. So even if you're reviewing an Ozzy album, that could be a problem. And it's just whoever's controlling that or just making a stink about it. YouTube doesn't want to deal with any loss. It's like, it's just not worth our time. Pull it down. So
so
some things
I
aren't,
shouldn't, so I shouldn't say Don Henley.
Don Henley, I think would be a problem. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to be reviewing any Eagles stuff. Um, I don't think. I mean, I'm trying to stay away from the 70s. I might
Yeah,
take a little
yeah,
field trip here and there, but the Eagles, I think my view on the Eagles is like the classic rock radio format kind of ruined them for a lot of
yeah,
people,
yeah.
myself included.
Know what
The
you're
only
saying.
I'll listen to some of their deeper cuts,
Yeah.
but they only had what, 7 albums.
Mhm.
I mean, I think they're going to be forgotten.
Mhm. What do you think of the Lemon Twigs? They're kind of like a 60s sound in a way.
Yeah, I haven't heard much of their stuff, although people have talked to me about them.
Yeah,
And there's a lot of good stuff out there like that. This power pop stuff that's I still like, but it's harder to find. People will recommend stuff to me and I'll come across stuff, but unfortunately, since I started this channel, my listening habits have changed. I don't even listen to the 60s stuff like I used to because I'm so busy trying to do, this content and stuff. So it's I've got less time to listen to new stuff. And it
mm,
appears that I even have less time to listen to the old stuff. I'm just compiling this video information. So
yeah,
unfortunately, that's my life.
yeah,
Or fortunately, that's my life.
yeah, yeah.
So, all right, Larry. Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on here. And like I say, I'm happy to support your work. And you're one of the good guys. And I always appreciated you taking me under your wing a little bit and welcoming me to the YouTube community, which I can't say the same for everybody, but I appreciate
Yeah.
that. And you helped give me the confidence to do a channel like this. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, man.
Well, and I'll put your request to the top on the Buckinghams. We'll get that closer to the top
Yeah,
of a
the
pile
very
here.
next video, Matt.
I'm actually working on a couple that I'm behind on already, but
Yeah.
that Buckingham's one will come out soon, I
So
think. So,
what's coming up next, Matt?
oh, do I dare say? I'm working on Moby Grape right now.
Oh, excellent. Yeah.
So that's been my biggest requested video.
Wow.
And I've done quite a lot of research on that one. Got a couple, there's been a couple biographies and
Yeah.
interesting band at an
Yeah.
interesting time.
I only had one of their albums. Unfortunate, not that it was a bad album, but it was Truly Fine Citizen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think did it contain any original members? I
Yeah,
think it.
it's all
Yeah.
original members.
Yeah.
There's only three guys left on
Yeah.
that. That was the fourth album.
Yeah.
So yeah, they never had any band member changes really. Interestingly enough, all you know how many bands just go through members rotating all the time. They didn't,
Mhm.
but it didn't help them too much,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Mm.
But that's how it goes. You'll find out all about it on Pop Goes the 60s.
And one other band, the Electric Prunes.
Yeah, I haven't had many requests for them, but yeah, I definitely want to do that. And they were one of the early psychedelic bands I
Yeah.
delved into as a teenager. And so they're
And
more
there was
garagey.
there was one album I bought by them called Good Time, something like Good Time Rock and Roll. It
Oh
had
yeah.
no original members.
No original. That's their last album. That's their fifth album.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
that's kind of the opposite of Moby Grape. Yeah, they had no
yeah.
original members. It was yeah, it gets kind of sad with some of
Yeah.
those bands, but that's one of them that I would do certainly want to do because they need a good retrospect. All right, Larry. Well, best of luck to you and people you can find Larry. I'm sure you know where to find him, but I'll put the link below. Larry Graves Canadian Studmuffin is the channel that I'm going to direct you to. And any negative comments, just leave them over by Larry.
That's right. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, thanks for joining me.